Here's a question. When life throws its hardest punches, failure, loss, uncertainty, what do you fall back on? Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most revered Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. These words aren't just ancient wisdom, they're a call to action. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending everything's fine when it's not. It's about developing the mental tools to face life's challenges head-on with clarity and resilience, and that's exactly what we're diving into today. In this video, we'll explore 42 Stoic techniques designed to help you power through life's obstacles, no matter how daunting they seem. Whether you're navigating a personal crisis, dealing with setbacks, or simply looking to build unshakable inner strength, these practices are your roadmap. Think of this as more than just a video. It's an invitation to transform how you approach adversity one step at a time. What can you truly control in life? It's a question that might seem simple at first, but when you really sit with it, the answer can be surprisingly profound. The Stoics called this the Dichotomy of Control, a cornerstone of their philosophy. At its heart, this principle teaches us to focus only on what is within our power and let go of what isn't. Think about it. You can't control the weather, the actions of others, or even the outcomes of every situation. But what you can control is your own mind, your reactions, and your decisions. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it plainly: some things are within our power while others are not. The key to inner peace lies in recognizing the difference and acting accordingly. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're at work facing a tight deadline and a colleague drops the ball on their part of the project. You can't control their actions, but you can control how you respond. Do you spiral into frustration, or do you focus on what you can do to move forward? By shifting your energy toward solutions rather than dwelling on what went wrong, you reclaim your power. This isn't about ignoring problems, it's about directing your efforts where they matter most. So here's a question to reflect on. What areas of your life are you trying to control that are truly beyond your power? Is it the opinions of others, the pace of life, or perhaps even the past? The Stoic practice of the Dichotomy of Control invites us to let go of these burdens and focus on what we can shape: our own thoughts, choices, and actions. It's a liberating shift, one that can transform how you navigate life's challenges. What if you lost everything tomorrow? It's a jarring thought, isn't it? But what if I told you that imagining such a scenario could actually make you stronger, more resilient, and more appreciative of what you have right now? This is the essence of negative visualization, a powerful Stoic practice that might sound counterintuitive at first, but has profound benefits. The idea is simple. Instead of avoiding thoughts of loss or hardship, you deliberately reflect on them. By envisioning the worst-case scenarios, you prepare your mind to face them with clarity and composure. And perhaps even more importantly, you deepen your appreciation for the present. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most influential thinkers, was a master of this technique. He often wrote about the impermanence of life and the importance of mentally preparing for adversity. In one of his letters, he advised, rehearse death in your mind, rehearse poverty, loss, and pain. This wasn't about dwelling on negativity, it was about building resilience. By confronting these possibilities head-on, Seneca believed we could strip them of their power to unsettle us. When you've already faced your fears in your mind, they lose their ability to shock or overwhelm you in real life. Let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine for a moment that you lost your job unexpectedly. How would you handle it? Would you panic, or would you feel prepared? Negative visualization helps you walk through these scenarios in advance, so if they ever happen, you're not caught off guard. It's not about expecting the worst to happen, but about being ready if it does. And in the process, something remarkable happens. You start to notice how much you take for granted. The job you have, the relationships you cherish, even the simple comforts of daily life, they all become more vivid when you consider what it would be like to lose them. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to reflect on your life. What if your worst fears came true? How would you respond? By engaging in this exercise, you're not only preparing yourself for potential challenges, but you're also cultivating a deeper sense of gratitude for what you have right now. Negative visualization isn't about pessimism, it's about empowerment. It's a reminder that even in the face of loss, you have the strength to endure, adapt, and find meaning. Amor Fati, love your fate. These two words, famously echoed by Nietzsche but deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy, carry a transformative message. Embrace everything that happens, not in spite of it, but because of it. This isn't about passive acceptance, it's about active engagement with life exactly as it unfolds. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." What he's saying here is profound. Life will throw all kinds of experiences at you, and your power lies in how you respond to them. Amor Fati is about seeing every event, every twist and turn as fuel for your growth. Let's break this down with a practical example. Imagine you've just been passed over for a promotion you worked hard for. It's easy to feel defeated, to question your worth, or even resent the decision. But what if instead you chose to see this as an opportunity? Maybe it's a chance to reassess your goals, to explore a new direction, or to develop skills you've been neglecting. By embracing the setback, you shift from being a victim of circumstance to an active participant in your own story. Amor Fati teaches us that even the most challenging moments have value if we're willing to look for it. Now think about your own life. What's a situation you're facing right now that feels difficult or unfair? Can you find meaning in it? This isn't about pretending everything is perfect, it's about recognizing that even the toughest experiences can shape you in ways you might not yet see. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacles you face aren't just hurdles to overcome. They're opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. So here's an invitation. The next time life throws something unexpected your way, try asking yourself, how can I embrace this? What can I learn from it? Amor Fati isn't just a philosophy, it's a way of living. It's about finding beauty in the struggle, purpose in the pain, and strength in the uncertainty. When you learn to love your fate, you don't just survive life's challenges, you thrive because of them. Picture this: a Roman general stands on the edge of a battlefield, surveying the terrain before the clash begins. He doesn't just hope for victory, he prepares for every possible outcome, including defeat. This wasn't pessimism, it was strategy. The Stoics took this same approach to life, calling it Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. It's the practice of anticipating potential challenges and mentally preparing for them, not to dwell on fear, but to build resilience and clarity. By imagining what could go wrong, you're not inviting disaster, you're equipping yourself to face it with calm and confidence. Take Seneca, for example. He often wrote about the importance of preparing for adversity, saying, "The wise man anticipates the blows of fortune and softens them by expecting them." This isn't about living in constant worry, it's about being ready. When you've already walked through the worst-case scenarios in your mind, they lose their ability to shock or paralyze you. Instead, you can respond with purpose and composure. Let's bring this into the modern world. Think about financial planning, something many of us put off or avoid thinking about. What if you lost your job tomorrow or faced an unexpected medical expense? By using Premeditatio Malorum, you can mentally prepare for these possibilities and take practical steps to safeguard against them. It's not about expecting the worst to happen, but about being ready if it does. This kind of preparation doesn't just protect you, it empowers you. The same principle applies to health. Many of us avoid thinking about potential health issues until they arise. But what if instead you took the time to envision how you'd handle a serious diagnosis or a sudden illness? By mentally preparing for these scenarios, you can approach them with a clear plan and a steady mind, rather than being overwhelmed in the moment. So here's a question to reflect on. What challenges are you avoiding thinking about? Is it a difficult conversation, a career change, or perhaps a personal fear? Premeditatio Malorum invites you to face these possibilities head-on, not to dwell on them, but to prepare for them. By doing so, you're not just bracing for impact, you're building the mental and emotional tools to navigate life's uncertainties with strength and grace. This practice isn't about fear, it's about empowerment. It's about turning potential obstacles into opportunities for growth and resilience. You will die. What will you do with the time you have left? It's a question that cuts straight to the core of our existence, and it's at the heart of the Stoic practice known as Memento Mori, the remembrance of death. Far from being morbid or pessimistic, this practice is a profound tool for living with purpose and clarity. The Stoics believed that by keeping our mortality in mind, we could strip away the distractions and focus on what truly matters. Seneca, in his letters, often reflected on the fleeting nature of life, writing, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." His words are a wake-up call, urging us to make the most of every moment. Let's bring this into focus with a practical example. Think about your daily routine. How much of your time is spent on things that don't align with your deepest values or aspirations? Maybe it's scrolling through social media, procrastinating on important tasks, or getting caught up in petty disagreements. Now imagine if today were your last day. Would you feel satisfied with how you spent it? Memento Mori isn't about fear or despair, it's about clarity. It's a reminder to prioritize what truly matters: relationships, growth, and meaningful contributions rather than getting lost in trivialities. Seneca also wrote, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." What he meant is that we often live as if we have unlimited time, postponing our dreams and neglecting what's important. But when we remember that our time is finite, it sharpens our focus. Suddenly, the things that seemed urgent lose their grip, and the things that matter most rise to the surface. It's not about living in fear of death, but about living fully because of it. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to reflect on your life. If today were your last day, would you be proud of how you lived? What changes would you make to align your actions with your values? Memento Mori is more than a Stoic practice, it's a lens through which to see your life with greater intention and urgency. By remembering your mortality, you can stop wasting time on what doesn't matter and start living with the kind of purpose that leaves no room for regret. Imagine looking down at Earth from space for a moment. The vastness of the planet stretches out before you, a swirling mosaic of oceans, continents, and clouds. From this vantage point, the borders that divide nations are invisible. The noise of daily life is silent, and the struggles that consume us seem impossibly small. This is the essence of the Stoic practice known as the view from above, a mental exercise designed to help us gain perspective by zooming out from our personal problems and seeing them in the context of something much larger. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often used this technique to remind himself of the fleeting nature of human concerns. He wrote, "Think of the substance of the whole and how small your share. Think of the vastness of time and how brief the moment assigned to you." His words invite us to step back and see our lives as part of a much bigger picture. Let's bring this down to earth with a practical example. Say you're in the middle of a heated argument with a coworker. Emotions are running high, and it feels like the most important thing in the world right now. But what if you could pause and imagine yourself looking down at the situation from above? Suddenly, the office building is just a tiny speck in a sprawling city, which itself is a dot on a vast planet. The conflict that felt so urgent now seems almost insignificant in the grand scheme of things. This doesn't mean the issue isn't important, it's about putting it into perspective. By zooming out, you create mental space to respond calmly and thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. The view from above isn't just a tool for resolving conflicts, it's also a powerful way to manage stress. Think about a challenge you're facing right now. Maybe it's a looming deadline, a strained relationship, or a financial worry. Now imagine looking at your life from a distance. How does this challenge fit into the larger story of your life? In 5 years, will it still feel as overwhelming as it does today? Often, we inflate our problems, giving them more weight than they deserve. This exercise helps us recalibrate, reminding us that most of what we stress about is temporary and manageable. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one problem or worry that feels all-consuming to you right now? How might it look different if you could see it from a broader perspective? The view from above isn't about dismissing your struggles, it's about finding clarity and peace amidst the chaos. By practicing this Stoic technique, you're not just solving problems, you're transforming how you relate to them. It's a reminder that in the grand tapestry of life, even the darkest threads have their place, and every challenge is an opportunity to grow wiser and more resilient. How often do you take the time to reflect on your thoughts and actions? In the hustle and bustle of daily life, it's easy to let moments slip by without truly understanding them. But what if there was a simple, powerful tool to help you gain clarity, process emotions, and chart a path forward? Enter Stoic Journaling, a practice that has been used for centuries to cultivate self-awareness and personal growth. At its core, journaling is more than just writing down your day. It's a deliberate act of examining your inner world, your choices, and your progress. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most celebrated figures, made this practice central to his life. His Meditations, now a timeless work of philosophy, began as a personal journal, a space where he reflected on his challenges, his values, and his purpose. Through his writings, we see a man striving to live with integrity, constantly learning from his experiences and holding himself accountable. Let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine you've just had a tough day at work. Maybe a project didn't go as planned, or a conversation left you feeling frustrated. Instead of letting those emotions simmer, you sit down with a notebook and write. You ask yourself, what happened today? How did I respond? What could I have done differently? This isn't about dwelling on mistakes, it's about extracting lessons. Journaling gives you the space to process what happened, to see patterns in your behavior, and to make intentional choices moving forward. It's like having a conversation with your wiser self, one where you can step back and see the bigger picture. But journaling doesn't have to be formal or time-consuming. Even a few minutes at the end of the day can make a difference. The key is consistency and honesty. Write freely without judgment and focus on what you're learning. Ask yourself questions like, what did today teach me about my strengths? Where do I need to grow? How can I approach tomorrow with more clarity and purpose? Over time, this practice becomes a mirror, reflecting not just where you've been, but where you're headed. So here's a challenge for you. Tonight, before you go to bed, take 5 minutes to reflect on your day. What stood out to you? What emotions did you feel, and why? What lessons can you take from today's experiences? By making journaling a regular habit, you're not just recording your life, you're actively shaping it. It's a small act with profound results, one that can help you navigate life's challenges with greater wisdom and resilience. As Marcus Aurelius showed us, the pen can be a powerful tool for transformation if you're willing to use it. Epictetus once wrote, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." These words capture the essence of Stoic gratitude, a practice that doesn't just acknowledge what we have, but actively celebrates it. In a world that often feels defined by what's missing, more time, more money, more success, gratitude becomes a radical act. It's about shifting our focus from scarcity to abundance, from what's lacking to what's already present. For the Stoics, this wasn't just a feel-good exercise. It was a way of training the mind to see the world differently, to find joy in the ordinary and strength in the simple. Let's make this tangible. Imagine it's the end of a long, exhausting day. You're tired, maybe a little frustrated, and it's easy to focus on what went wrong. But what if instead you paused and asked yourself what went right? Maybe it was a kind word from a colleague, a moment of quiet during your commute, or simply the fact that you made it through the day. These small moments, when noticed and appreciated, can transform how you feel. Gratitude isn't about ignoring challenges, it's about balancing them with an awareness of what's good. One practical way to cultivate this mindset is through a gratitude journal. It's a simple yet powerful tool. Each day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand or life-changing. They could be as simple as a good cup of coffee, a phone call with a friend, or even the warmth of sunlight on your face. The act of writing shifts your attention, helping you notice and savor the positives that might otherwise slip by unnoticed. Over time, this practice rewires your brain, making it easier to see abundance even in difficult moments. So here's a question for you. What are 3 things you're grateful for today? Take a moment to think about it. It could be something small, something you've taken for granted, or something that brought you joy. By practicing gratitude, you're not just changing your mood in the moment, you're building a habit of looking for the good, even when life feels heavy. This Stoic practice reminds us that joy isn't something we find. It's something we create, one small act of appreciation at a time. What do you truly need to be happy? It's a question that can stop you in your tracks, especially in a world that constantly tells us we need more. More money, more success, more stuff. But the Stoics offer a radically different perspective. They believe that true happiness doesn't come from external things, but from aligning our desires with what is within our control. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it simply, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This idea is at the heart of the Stoic discipline of desire, a practice that challenges us to examine what we truly value and why. At its core, the discipline of desire is about freedom. When we tie our happiness to things outside our control like wealth, status, or the approval of others, we give away our power. We become slaves to circumstances, constantly chasing after what we don't have instead of appreciating what we do. But when we focus on what's within our control, our thoughts, our choices, our character, we find a deeper, more enduring sense of fulfillment. It's not about rejecting all desires, but about choosing the ones that align with our values and contribute to our growth. Let's bring this into the modern world. Think about how often we equate happiness with material possessions. Maybe it's the latest smartphone, a bigger house, or a luxury car. These things can bring temporary pleasure, but they rarely bring lasting satisfaction. Why? Because they're external. They depend on circumstances that can change in an instant. The Stoics would argue that true happiness comes from within, from cultivating virtues like wisdom, courage, and self-discipline. These are things no one can take away from you, no matter what happens. Here's a practical example. Imagine you're working long hours to afford a lifestyle that feels just out of reach. You're stressed, exhausted, and constantly worried about keeping up. Now, what if you took a step back and asked yourself, do I really need all this to be happy? By questioning your desires, you might discover that what you truly want isn't more stuff, but more time, time with loved ones, time to pursue your passions, time to simply be. This shift in perspective can be liberating, helping you focus on what truly matters. So here's a question to reflect on. What desires are causing you unnecessary stress? Are you chasing after things because they genuinely align with your values or because society tells you they should? The Stoic discipline of desire invites us to take a hard look at what we want and why, to let go of what doesn't serve us, and to focus on what brings real, lasting fulfillment. It's not about living with less, it's about living with purpose, finding joy in what you already have, and freeing yourself from the endless cycle of wanting more. Your actions define your character. This simple truth lies at the heart of the Stoic discipline of action, a practice that challenges us to align our behavior with our values, no matter the circumstances. For the Stoics, virtue wasn't just an abstract idea. It was something to be lived moment by moment through the choices we make. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." His words cut straight to the point. It's not enough to know what's right, you have to act on it. This principle reminds us that integrity isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching. Let's make this real with an example. Imagine you're at work and you witness a colleague being treated unfairly. Maybe they're being overlooked for a promotion they deserve, or perhaps they're being spoken to disrespectfully. It would be easy to stay silent, to tell yourself it's not your problem. But the Stoic discipline of action calls you to step up. It's about standing for what's right, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it might cost you something. By acting with courage and integrity, you're not just helping someone else, you're shaping your own character. Every choice you make, no matter how small, is a brushstroke in the larger picture of who you are. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." What he meant is that our actions don't just reflect our character, they shape it. When you act with honesty, kindness, and fairness, you're not just responding to the world, you're building a stronger, more virtuous self. This isn't about grand gestures or heroic acts. It's about the everyday decisions that define who you are. It's about choosing to be patient when you're frustrated, generous when you're tempted to be selfish, and courageous when it's easier to stay silent. So here's a question to reflect on. Are your actions aligned with your values? Think about the last time you faced a difficult choice. Did you act in a way that honored your principles, or did you compromise for the sake of convenience? The Stoic discipline of action invites us to live intentionally, to make choices that reflect not just who we are, but who we aspire to be. It's a reminder that every moment is an opportunity to practice virtue, to act with integrity, and to become the kind of person you can be proud of. In the end, it's not the outcomes that define us, it's how we choose to show up in the world. How do you react to your first impressions? Think about it when something happens. Do you immediately jump to conclusions, or do you take a moment to question what you're feeling? This is where the Stoic discipline of Ascent comes into play. It's a practice that teaches us to pause before accepting our initial thoughts as truth. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most profound thinkers, put it this way: it's not the things themselves that disturb people, but their judgments about those things. In other words, our reactions aren't dictated by events, but by how we interpret them. The discipline of Ascent invites us to step back and examine those interpretations before we let them shape our emotions and actions. Consider a modern example. You're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. Your first instinct might be frustration or anger. Maybe you're cursing the other drivers or blaming the situation. But what if, instead of letting that reaction take over, you paused and asked yourself, is this anger helping me? Is it even justified? The Stoics would argue that your frustration isn't caused by the traffic itself, but by your judgment of it. By questioning that judgment, you create space to respond more thoughtfully. Maybe you use the extra time to listen to a podcast, or you remind yourself that being late isn't the end of the world. The discipline of Ascent isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding where they come from and choosing how to engage with them. Epictetus also taught that our perceptions are often flawed. We see the world through a filter of assumptions, biases, and past experiences, and these can distort our understanding of what's really happening. For instance, if a coworker gives you a curt response, your first impression might be that they're upset with you. But what if they're just having a bad day? By practicing the discipline of Ascent, you challenge your assumptions and open yourself to other possibilities. This doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means acknowledging them without letting them control you. So here's a question to reflect on. What assumptions are you making right now that might not be true? Are you accepting your first impressions as fact, or are you willing to question them? The discipline of Ascent is a powerful tool for cultivating clarity and emotional resilience. It's about recognizing that you have the power to choose how you respond to life's challenges, one thought at a time. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." It's a striking observation, isn't it? So much of our pain comes not from the events themselves, but from how we replay them in our minds. The grudges we nurse, the mistakes we can't stop revisiting, the fears of what might go wrong. This is where the Stoic art of detachment comes in. It's not about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about freeing yourself from the emotional weight of things you can't control. By practicing detachment, you create space to respond to life's challenges with clarity and calm, rather than being dragged down by them. Take grudges, for example. Holding on to anger or resentment is like carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go. It weighs you down, but it doesn't hurt the person you're upset with. The Stoics believed that forgiveness and letting go weren't just acts of kindness toward others. They were acts of self-liberation. When you release a grudge, you're not saying what happened was okay. You're saying you refuse to let it control your peace of mind. Think about it. How much energy do you spend replaying past hurts or injustices? What could you do with that energy if you chose to let it go? Detachment also applies to mistakes. We all have moments we wish we could undo, decisions we regret, or paths we wish we'd taken differently. But dwelling on them doesn't change the past, it only robs you of the present. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't let the future disturb you. You will meet it if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present." His words remind us that the past is gone, the future is uncertain, and the only moment we truly have is now. By detaching from what's already happened, you free yourself to focus on what you can do today. So here's a question to reflect on. What are you holding onto that no longer serves you? Is it a grudge, a regret, or perhaps an unrealistic expectation? The art of detachment isn't about denying your emotions. It's about choosing which ones deserve your energy. When you let go of what you can't control, you make room for what truly matters, the present moment, your peace of mind, and the opportunity to live fully. It's a practice that doesn't just reduce suffering, it transforms how you experience life itself. Picture this, a crowded marketplace in ancient Rome, bustling with noise and chaos. Amid the clamor, a Stoic philosopher stands quietly, observing, listening, and reflecting. For the Stoics, silence wasn't just the absence of noise, it was a powerful tool for clarity, wisdom, and self-control. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often emphasized the value of quiet reflection, writing, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." His words remind us that silence is more than a pause. It's a deliberate choice to step back, to think before reacting, and to let the world unfold without immediately adding our voice to the mix. Epictetus, another towering figure in Stoicism, took this idea even further. He taught that one of the greatest marks of wisdom is knowing when to hold your tongue. "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth," he famously said, "so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This isn't just about being polite, it's about recognizing that words have power, and often the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Silence allows us to process, to understand, and to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. It's a form of restraint that can diffuse tension, prevent misunderstandings, and even reveal truths that might otherwise go unnoticed. Let's bring this into the modern world. Think about the last time you found yourself in a heated argument, maybe with a coworker, a friend, or even a stranger online. In the heat of the moment, it's easy to say things you don't mean, to escalate conflict, or to let emotions take the wheel. But what if, instead of jumping in, you chose silence, not as a sign of weakness, but as an act of strength? Silence gives you the space to breathe, to reflect, and to decide whether the argument is worth having in the first place. Often, the most productive conversations happen not when we speak, but when we listen. So here's a challenge for you. The next time you're tempted to jump into a debate or defend yourself, pause. Take a moment to observe, to listen, and to consider whether your words will add value or simply add noise. Silence isn't about avoiding conflict, it's about engaging with it on your own terms. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. When was the last time you chose silence over speaking? By embracing the power of silence, you're not just avoiding unnecessary conflict, you're cultivating a deeper sense of self-awareness and control. It's a Stoic practice that can transform how you navigate the noise of the world, one quiet moment at a time. How much of what you own do you truly need? It's a question that might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's one worth asking. In a world that constantly pushes us to accumulate more clothes, more gadgets, more commitments, the Stoic practice of simplicity offers a refreshing alternative. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, wrote extensively about the value of living with less. He argued that simplicity isn't just about owning fewer things, it's about freeing yourself from the distractions and burdens that come with excess. "It is not the man who has too little," he wrote, "but the man who craves more that is poor." His words remind us that true wealth lies not in what we own, but in what we can let go of. Think about your home for a moment. How many items do you have that you no longer use, that clutter your space without adding value to your life? For the Stoics, decluttering wasn't just a practical act, it was a philosophical one. By removing the unnecessary, you create room for what truly matters. Imagine walking into a room that's free of clutter. The space feels open, calm, and inviting. It's not just your physical environment that benefits, your mind does too. Simplicity clears the mental fog, allowing you to focus on your goals, your relationships, and your inner peace. Let's bring this into the real world. Picture your closet stuffed with clothes you haven't worn in years. Each item takes up space, not just in your home, but in your mind. Now imagine donating or selling those clothes. Suddenly, you're not just clearing out a closet, you're making a statement about what you value. You're choosing freedom over accumulation, clarity over chaos. This is the essence of Stoic simplicity. It's not about deprivation, but about intentionality. It's about asking yourself, what do I really need to live well, and letting go of the rest. So here's a question to reflect on. What can you let go of to create more space in your life? It might be physical clutter, like old belongings, or it could be mental clutter, like unnecessary obligations or toxic relationships. The practice of simplicity isn't about living with nothing, it's about living with purpose. By stripping away the excess, you uncover what truly matters, and in doing so, you find a deeper sense of freedom and fulfillment. As Seneca wisely noted, if you wish to have leisure for your mind, either be a poor man or resemble a poor man. The choice is yours. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." These words are a call to action, a reminder that obstacles aren't just barriers, they're opportunities. For the Stoics, courage wasn't about waiting for fear to disappear before taking action. It was about moving forward despite fear, about seeing challenges as the very path to growth. Courage, in this sense, isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to act in spite of it. And this principle applies to every aspect of life, whether it's facing a difficult conversation, taking a bold career leap, or even confronting a long-held fear. Let's bring this to life with a modern example. Imagine you've been invited to give a presentation at work, but the thought of speaking in front of a crowd fills you with dread. Your first instinct might be to decline, to avoid the discomfort altogether. But what if instead you saw this as an opportunity to practice courage? The Stoics would argue that your fear isn't a sign to retreat, it's an invitation to grow. By stepping onto that stage, even with trembling hands, you're not just delivering a presentation, you're building resilience, one shaky breath at a time. And the more you do it, the more you'll realize that the fear itself is often worse than the thing you're afraid of. Courage isn't about being fearless, it's about being willing to face what scares you. It's about recognizing that every obstacle, every challenge is a chance to strengthen your character. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write about this idea, he lived it. As a Roman emperor, he faced constant threats, political intrigue, and personal loss. Yet he saw each challenge as a teacher, an opportunity to practice virtue. His example reminds us that courage isn't reserved for grand, heroic moments. It's found in the small, everyday decisions to confront what we'd rather avoid. So here's a question to reflect on. What challenge are you avoiding that could help you grow? Is it a difficult conversation, a new responsibility, or perhaps a fear that's been holding you back? The Stoic virtue of courage invites us to lean into these moments, to see them not as obstacles but as stepping stones. When you choose to face what stands in your way, you're not just overcoming a challenge, you're transforming it into a path toward strength and wisdom. Knowledge is not enough, wisdom is knowing how to apply it. This distinction lies at the heart of the Stoic virtue of wisdom, a quality that goes far beyond simply accumulating facts or information. For the Stoics, wisdom wasn't about having all the answers. It was about knowing how to live well, how to navigate life's complexities with clarity and purpose. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most profound voices, wrote extensively about the importance of lifelong learning. He believed that true wisdom comes not from sitting in ivory towers, but from engaging with the world, reflecting on our experiences, and applying what we learn to improve ourselves and others. As long as you live, keep learning how to live, he advised. His words remind us that wisdom is a journey, not a destination. Let's make this tangible. Imagine you've just read a book filled with brilliant insights. Maybe it's about leadership, relationships, or personal growth. You close the book feeling inspired, but then what? If those ideas stay on the page, they're just words. Wisdom is what happens when you take those insights and put them into action. It's about noticing patterns in your life, reflecting on what works and what doesn't, and making intentional choices to grow. For example, if you've learned that listening is more powerful than speaking, wisdom is the practice of holding your tongue in a heated conversation, even when every fiber of your being wants to interrupt. One practical way to cultivate wisdom is through mentorship. The Stoics believed in the power of learning from others, especially those who have walked the path before us. Think about a mentor in your own life, someone who has guided you, challenged you, or inspired you to see things differently. Mentorship isn't just about receiving advice. It's about engaging in a dialogue, asking questions, and applying what you learn to your own circumstances. Wisdom grows when we're willing to listen, to be humble, and to admit that we don't have all the answers. So here's a question to reflect on. What lesson have you learned recently that you can apply to your life? It might be something small, like a new way to manage your time, or something profound, like a shift in how you see a relationship. The Stoic pursuit of wisdom invites us to take those lessons and turn them into action, to use what we've learned to live with greater clarity and purpose. Wisdom isn't about knowing everything, it's about knowing how to use what you know to make your life and the lives of those around you better, and that's a journey worth taking every single day. How do you treat others even when it's difficult? It's a question that cuts to the core of what it means to live a virtuous life, and it's at the heart of the Stoic virtue of justice. For the Stoics, justice wasn't just about following laws or rules, it was about how we interact with others, especially when it's hard. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "What is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee." His words remind us that we're all connected, and that true justice begins with recognizing our shared humanity. It's about treating others with fairness, kindness, and respect, even when they don't do the same for us. Let's bring this into focus with a modern example. Imagine you're at work and you notice a colleague being unfairly criticized or excluded. It's easy to stay silent, to tell yourself it's not your problem. But the Stoic virtue of justice calls you to act. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Maybe you speak up in the meeting, or you offer support to your colleague afterward. These small acts of justice might not change the world overnight, but they create ripples. They remind others and yourself that fairness and kindness matter, even in the face of adversity. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "To wrong another is to wrong yourself." At first glance, this might seem paradoxical, but when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. When we act unjustly, whether through cruelty, indifference, or dishonesty, we don't just harm others, we harm our own character. Every act of injustice chips away at our integrity, our sense of self-respect, and our ability to live in alignment with our values. On the flip side, every act of justice strengthens those qualities. It's not just about doing the right thing, it's about becoming the kind of person who naturally does the right thing. So here's a question to reflect on. How can you act more justly in your daily life? It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be as simple as listening to someone who feels unheard or offering help to someone in need, even when it's inconvenient. Justice isn't just about the big moments, it's about the small, everyday choices that define who we are. By practicing fairness and kindness, even in difficult situations, you're not just making the world a better place, you're becoming a better version of yourself. And in the end, that's what Stoic justice is all about, living in a way that honors both others and yourself. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." These words cut to the heart of the Stoic virtue of temperance, a practice that's all about finding balance and moderation in every aspect of life. At its core, temperance isn't about denial or deprivation, it's about self-mastery. It's the ability to say no to excess and yes to what truly matters, even when it's tempting to do otherwise. For the Stoics, this wasn't just a personal choice, it was a path to freedom. When you're no longer controlled by your impulses, you're free to live with intention and purpose. Let's bring this into the modern world. Think about how much time we spend on our phones, scrolling through social media or binge-watching shows. It's easy to lose hours without even realizing it, caught in a cycle of endless distraction. Temperance invites us to step back and ask, is this how I want to spend my time? It's not about cutting out technology entirely, it's about using it mindfully, in a way that serves you rather than controls you. For example, setting boundaries around screen time can create space for more meaningful activities, like reading, exercising, or connecting with loved ones. The key is to find a balance that aligns with your values and goals. But temperance goes beyond just managing screen time. It applies to every area of life: what we eat, how we spend our money, even how we express our emotions. The Stoics believed that excess in any form, whether it's overindulgence or extreme restraint, throws us off balance. True temperance is about finding the middle path, the sweet spot where you're neither indulging recklessly nor denying yourself unnecessarily. It's about making choices that honor your long-term well-being, even when short-term gratification is calling. So here's a question to reflect on: where in your life do you need more balance? Is it in your diet, your work habits, or perhaps how you manage stress? The Stoic practice of temperance isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's about gradually aligning your actions with what's best for you, one small, intentional choice at a time. When you master yourself, you reclaim your freedom, and that's a gift worth striving for. How often are you truly present in the moment? Think about it. When was the last time you felt fully immersed in what you were doing, without your mind wandering to the past or worrying about the future? For the Stoics, living in the here and now wasn't just a nice idea, it was a cornerstone of their philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often emphasized the importance of mindfulness, writing, "Concentrate every minute like a Roman, like a man, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness." His words remind us that the present moment is all we truly have, and how we engage with it shapes the quality of our lives. The practice of presence is about more than just paying attention. It's about cultivating a deep awareness of the here and now. In a world filled with constant distractions, emails, notifications, endless to-do lists, it's easy to lose sight of what's right in front of us. The Stoics believed that by grounding ourselves in the present, we could find clarity, peace, and even joy. It's not about ignoring the past or future, but about recognizing that they exist only in our minds. The present, however, is tangible, real, and full of potential. Let's make this tangible with a modern example. Imagine you're sitting down to eat a meal. How often do you truly savor each bite, noticing the flavors, textures, and aromas? Or do you find yourself scrolling through your phone, barely aware of what you're eating? Mindful breathing is another simple yet powerful way to practice presence. Take a moment to focus on your breath. Inhale deeply, feel the air fill your lungs, and exhale slowly. This small act can anchor you in the present, helping you tune out distractions and reconnect with yourself. So here's a question to reflect on. What distractions are pulling you away from the present moment? Is it your phone, your worries, or perhaps the constant pressure to multitask? The Stoic practice of presence invites us to pause, to notice, and to engage fully with the here and now. By doing so, we don't just live more mindfully, we live more meaningfully. Every moment is an opportunity to be present, to connect, and to truly experience life as it unfolds. Resistance to reality only causes suffering. It's a truth that might feel counterintuitive at first, but when you really sit with it, the wisdom becomes undeniable. The Stoics understood this deeply, and one of their most transformative practices is acceptance, not as resignation, but as a way to find peace and clarity in the face of life's uncertainties. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it simply: don't seek for everything to happen as you wish, but wish for everything to happen as it does, and you will have peace. His words remind us that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. Acceptance isn't about giving up, it's about choosing to flow with life rather than fighting against it. Let's make this tangible with a modern example. Imagine you've been looking forward to a weekend getaway. You've planned every detail, packed your bags, and counted down the days. But then, at the last minute, the trip gets cancelled. Maybe it's due to bad weather, a work emergency, or an unexpected illness. Your first reaction might be frustration or disappointment, maybe even anger. But what if, instead of resisting the situation, you chose to accept it? This doesn't mean pretending you're happy about it. It means acknowledging that what's done is done and focusing on what you can do next. Maybe you use the weekend to catch up on rest, dive into a hobby, or spend quality time with loved ones. By shifting your mindset from resistance to acceptance, you transform what could have been a stressful experience into an opportunity for something new. Epictetus also taught that our suffering often comes from clinging to things outside our control. He said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." This is the essence of Stoic acceptance. It's not about passively enduring life's challenges, but about actively choosing to meet them with grace and resilience. When we stop fighting against what we can't change, we free up energy to focus on what we can influence: our thoughts, our actions, and our attitude. So here's a question to reflect on. What are you resisting right now that you need to accept? Is it a change in plans, a difficult relationship, or perhaps a situation you can't control? The Stoic practice of acceptance invites us to let go of the struggle and embrace reality as it is. It's a reminder that peace doesn't come from controlling the world around us, but from mastering our response to it. When we learn to accept what we cannot change, we open the door to a deeper sense of calm, clarity, and freedom. Seneca once wrote, "A wise man is neither raised up by prosperity nor cast down by adversity." These words capture the essence of equanimity, a Stoic practice that's all about maintaining inner calm, no matter what life throws your way. For the Stoics, equanimity wasn't just a lofty ideal. It was a practical tool for navigating the ups and downs of life with grace and resilience. The goal isn't to suppress emotions or pretend everything is fine when it's not. It's about finding a steady center within yourself, a place of calm that remains unshaken, whether you're facing a windfall or a setback. Picture this: you're at work and suddenly a major project falls apart. Deadlines are missed, clients are frustrated, and the pressure is mounting. In moments like these, it's natural to feel panic, frustration, or even anger. But what if, instead of letting those emotions take over, you paused and reminded yourself, this is an opportunity to practice equanimity? The Stoics believed that external events don't have to dictate our internal state. You can acknowledge the seriousness of the situation without letting it unravel you. By staying composed, you're better equipped to think clearly, make thoughtful decisions, and lead others through the crisis. Equanimity isn't about being emotionless, it's about not letting emotions control you. Think of it like the eye of a storm. While chaos swirls around you, you remain calm and centered. This doesn't mean you ignore problems or avoid taking action. It means you approach challenges with a clear mind and a steady heart. Marcus Aurelius, for example, faced countless trials as a Roman emperor: wars, political turmoil, personal loss. Yet he consistently returned to the idea that his peace of mind was his own to protect. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His words remind us that equanimity is a choice, one we can make in every moment. So here's a question to reflect on. How can you cultivate more calm in your daily life? It might start with small practices, like taking a few deep breaths when you feel overwhelmed or pausing before reacting to a stressful situation. Over time, these small acts of mindfulness can build into a deeper sense of equanimity, helping you face life's challenges with greater resilience and clarity. The Stoic practice of equanimity isn't about avoiding difficulty, it's about meeting it with a steady hand and a calm heart, knowing that your peace of mind is always within your control. What are you clinging to that's holding you back? It's a question worth sitting with, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. For the Stoics, the art of letting go wasn't about giving up or surrendering. It was about freeing yourself from the weight of attachments that no longer serve you. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." His words remind us that impermanence is a fundamental part of life. Everything we hold onto, relationships, possessions, even our own identities, is subject to change. And yet, so much of our suffering comes from resisting that truth, from clinging to what we think should be rather than accepting what is. Let's bring this idea into the real world. Imagine you're in a toxic relationship, one that drains your energy, undermines your self-worth, and keeps you stuck in a cycle of frustration. Letting go might feel impossible, especially if you've invested time, emotion, or even years into making it work. But here's the Stoic perspective. Holding on doesn't mean you're strong. It might mean you're refusing to face reality. Letting go isn't about failure, it's about reclaiming your freedom. By releasing what no longer serves you, you create space for what can. This isn't just about relationships, it applies to jobs, habits, even old grudges. The act of letting go isn't easy, but it's often the first step toward growth. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. What he's saying here is profound. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. Letting go is a choice, one that requires courage and self-awareness. It's about recognizing that some things are beyond your control, and that's okay. When you release your grip on what you can't change, you gain clarity and peace. You stop wasting energy on what's not working and start focusing on what is. So here's a question to reflect on. What can you release to create more freedom in your life? Is it a toxic relationship, a job that doesn't fulfill you, or perhaps an old grudge that's been weighing you down? The Stoic practice of letting go invites us to examine what we're holding onto and ask whether it's truly serving us. It's not about abandoning what matters, it's about making room for what truly does. When you learn to let go, you don't just lighten your load, you open yourself to new possibilities, new growth, and a deeper sense of peace, and that's a freedom worth striving for. Know thyself, the foundation of Stoic wisdom. These two words, often attributed to the ancient Greeks but deeply embedded in Stoic thought, capture the essence of self-reflection. For the Stoics, self-knowledge wasn't just a philosophical ideal. It was a daily practice, a way to deepen your understanding of who you are and how you fit into the world. Seneca, in his letters, emphasized the importance of this practice, writing, "Each day call yourself to account. What did you do well? What could you have done better? What did you fail to do that you should have?" His words remind us that self-reflection isn't about judgment or guilt, it's about growth. It's about taking an honest look at your actions, your choices, and your character, so you can learn, adjust, and move forward with greater clarity. Let's make this practical. Imagine it's the end of a long day. You're tired, maybe a little overwhelmed, and all you want to do is unwind. But before you shut off the lights, you take 5 minutes to reflect. You ask yourself, what went well today? Where did I struggle? What could I have done differently? This simple act of self-examination isn't just about reviewing your day, it's about understanding yourself. It's about noticing patterns, identifying areas for improvement, and celebrating your progress. Over time, this practice becomes a mirror, reflecting not just where you've been, but where you're headed. Seneca also wrote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." What he meant is that without self-reflection, we risk drifting through life on autopilot, reacting to events rather than shaping them. Self-reflection gives us the tools to live intentionally, to align our actions with our values, and to become the kind of person we aspire to be. It's not about perfection, it's about awareness. It's about recognizing that every day is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to deepen your understanding of yourself. So here's a question to reflect on. What have you learned about yourself recently? It could be something small, like a new way to handle stress, or something profound, like a shift in how you see a relationship. The practice of self-reflection invites us to pause, to notice, and to engage with our own lives in a meaningful way. By making this a regular habit, you're not just living, you're growing. And in the process, you're building a life of purpose, one thoughtful moment at a time. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This simple yet profound idea lies at the heart of the Stoic practice of perspective, a tool that allows us to reframe challenges and transform how we experience life. At its core, perspective is about seeing things differently. It's about recognizing that while we can't always control the events that unfold around us, we can always control the lens through which we view them. And that shift, that change in perspective, can make all the difference. Let's break it down with a practical example. Imagine you've just received critical feedback at work. Your first reaction might be disappointment or even defensiveness. But what if, instead of seeing this as a personal attack, you chose to view it as an opportunity for growth? The Stoics believed that every challenge, no matter how difficult, carries within it the seeds of learning and improvement. By reframing the feedback as a chance to develop new skills or strengthen existing ones, you're not just accepting it, you're leveraging it to become better. This isn't about ignoring the sting of criticism. It's about choosing to see it as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. Think about a challenge you're facing right now. It could be a setback at work, a strained relationship, or even a personal goal that feels out of reach. How are you viewing it? Are you seeing it as a roadblock, or could it be an opportunity in disguise? The Stoic practice of perspective invites us to step back and ask ourselves, what's another way to look at this? Sometimes, the act of shifting our viewpoint is enough to illuminate a path forward that we hadn't noticed before. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflected on the power of perspective. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." What he's saying here is that obstacles aren't just barriers, they're opportunities to grow, to adapt, and to find new solutions. When we change how we see a challenge, we change how we respond to it. And in that response lies our power. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one challenge in your life that you can reframe today? It doesn't have to be a monumental shift, just a small change in how you see the situation. By practicing the Stoic art of perspective, you're not just navigating life's challenges, you're transforming them into opportunities for growth, resilience, and deeper understanding. And that's a perspective worth cultivating. How do you handle delays or setbacks? It's a question that can reveal a lot about how we approach life's uncertainties. For the Stoics, patience wasn't just a passive waiting game. It was an active virtue, a way to cultivate strength and resilience in the face of life's inevitable delays. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflected on the importance of enduring difficulties with grace. He wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, because an artful life requires being prepared to meet and withstand sudden and unexpected attacks." His words remind us that patience isn't about sitting back and hoping for the best. It's about staying steady, even when progress feels slow or obstacles seem endless. Let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine you've been working toward a promotion for months, maybe even years. You've put in the effort, delivered results, and done everything you can to prove your worth. But the promotion keeps getting delayed. It's easy to feel frustrated, to question your value, or even to give up. This is where Stoic patience comes in. It's about recognizing that some things are outside your control, like the timing of a promotion, but how you respond is entirely within your power. By choosing to stay focused and composed, you're not just enduring the wait, you're building the kind of character that can handle any challenge, no matter how long it takes. Patience isn't just about waiting, it's about how you wait. Think about a farmer planting seeds. They don't dig up the soil every day to check if the seeds are growing. Instead, they trust the process, knowing that growth takes time. In the same way, patience requires trust, not just in circumstances, but in yourself. It's about believing that your efforts will bear fruit, even if you can't see the results yet. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "Everything that happens is either endurable or not. If it's endurable, then endure it. If it's not, then stop complaining because it will destroy you all the same." His words are a reminder that patience isn't just a virtue, it's a survival skill. So here's a question to reflect on. Where in your life do you need more patience? Is it in your career, your relationships, or perhaps a personal goal that feels out of reach? The Stoic practice of patience invites us to embrace the uncertainty of life, to trust the process, and to stay steady in the face of delays. It's not about giving up, it's about growing stronger, one waiting moment at a time. True strength lies in humility, a concept that might seem paradoxical at first, but one that the Stoics held in high regard. For them, humility wasn't about downplaying your worth or shrinking into the background. It was about recognizing your limitations, embracing your imperfections, and staying grounded in the face of success or failure. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, wrote extensively about the importance of humility. He believed that true wisdom begins with acknowledging how much we don't know. "No man is more unhappy," he said, "than he who never faces adversity. For he is not permitted to prove himself." His words remind us that humility isn't weakness, it's the foundation of growth and resilience. Consider a modern-day scenario. You're at work, leading a project that hits a major snag. Maybe a decision you made turned out to be flawed, or perhaps a strategy you championed didn't deliver the expected results. In moments like these, it's tempting to deflect blame, make excuses, or even double down on your stance. But what if instead you chose humility? What if you stepped forward, admitted the mistake, and sought solutions collaboratively? This isn't just about owning up to an error. It's about showing the kind of strength that comes from self-awareness and a willingness to learn. Humility in action doesn't diminish your credibility, it enhances it. It shows that you're secure enough to grow, to adapt, and to prioritize the greater good over your ego. Seneca also warned against the dangers of pride, writing, "Pride is the greatest burden a man can carry." He saw humility as the antidote, a way to stay connected to reality and to others. Think about it. When we're humble, we're more open to feedback, more willing to collaborate, and more capable of seeing the bigger picture. Humility doesn't mean you lack confidence. It means your confidence is rooted in something deeper than external validation. It's about knowing your worth without needing to prove it to anyone else. So here's a question to reflect on. How can you practice more humility in your daily life? It might start with something small, like listening more and speaking less, or admitting when you don't have all the answers. It could mean celebrating the achievements of others without feeling the need to compare yourself. Humility is a practice, not a one-time act. It's about consistently choosing to see yourself honestly, to value growth over ego, and to approach life with a sense of curiosity rather than certainty. When you embrace humility, you don't just become stronger, you become wiser, more connected, and more human. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." These words cut to the heart of the Stoic practice of forgiveness, a practice that's less about the other person and more about freeing yourself. For the Stoics, forgiveness wasn't about excusing someone's actions or pretending they didn't hurt you. It was about releasing the hold that resentment has on your mind and heart. By letting go of anger and bitterness, you reclaim your peace and your power. Forgiveness, in this sense, is an act of self-liberation. It's about choosing to rise above the injury, not to condone it, but to refuse to let it define you. Think about a modern example. A close friend betrays your trust. Maybe they shared a secret you confided in them, or they sided with someone else in a conflict. The sting of betrayal can linger, coloring your thoughts and draining your energy. It's natural to feel hurt, even angry, but holding onto that resentment only deepens the wound. Forgiveness, from a Stoic perspective, isn't about reconciling with the person or even telling them you forgive them. It's about making a conscious decision to stop letting their actions control your emotions. It's about saying, "I won't let this define me." Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "When another blames you or hates you, or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside and see what sort of people they are." His words remind us that people often act out of their own pain, ignorance, or limitations. Understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior, but it can help us see it in a broader context. When we recognize that the person who hurt us is struggling in their own way, it becomes easier to let go of the need for revenge or retribution. Forgiveness in this light becomes an act of strength, not weakness. So here's a question to reflect on. Who do you need to forgive to free yourself from resentment? It might be someone who deeply hurt you, or it could be yourself for a mistake you can't seem to move past. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or pretending the hurt never happened. It means choosing to release the weight of anger and bitterness so you can move forward with clarity and peace. When you forgive, you're not just healing the past, you're creating space for a brighter, freer future. How do you prepare for life's uncertainties? It's a question that might make you pause, especially when the future feels so unpredictable. For the Stoics, preparation wasn't just about hoping for the best, it was about being ready for the worst. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most practical thinkers, put it simply, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But here's the thing, how you react often depends on how prepared you are, both mentally and practically. Preparation, in the Stoic sense, is about building resilience before the storm hits, so when challenges come, and they will, you're not caught off guard. Let's break this down. Mental preparation starts with mindset. The Stoics believed in regularly envisioning potential setbacks, what they called Premeditatio Malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This isn't about dwelling on negativity, it's about training your mind to stay calm and focused even in the face of adversity. For example, imagine you're about to give a big presentation. Instead of just hoping it goes well, you take a moment to consider what could go wrong. Maybe the technology fails or the audience isn't engaged. By mentally rehearsing these possibilities, you're not just preparing for failure, you're building the confidence to handle it gracefully. It's like having a mental safety net, but preparation isn't just mental, it's also practical. Think about saving for emergencies. It's easy to put off setting aside money when life feels stable, but the Stoics would argue that stability is the best time to prepare. By creating a financial buffer, you're not just protecting yourself from future stress, you're giving yourself the freedom to face challenges without panic. This principle applies to other areas of life too. Whether it's learning a new skill, maintaining your health, or even strengthening relationships, preparation is about investing in your future self. As Seneca wisely noted, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So here's a question to reflect on. What steps can you take today to prepare for future challenges? It might be something tangible, like starting an emergency fund, or something intangible, like practicing mindfulness to stay calm under pressure. The Stoic practice of preparation isn't about predicting the future, it's about being ready for whatever it brings. When you prepare, you're not just surviving life's uncertainties, you're thriving in spite of them. And that's a power worth cultivating. Multitasking is the enemy of progress. It's a bold statement, but one the Stoics would wholeheartedly agree with. For them, focus wasn't just a productivity hack, it was a way of life. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most prolific writers, often emphasized the importance of concentration. He wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." His words remind us that scattering our attention across too many tasks only dilutes our effectiveness. True progress, the Stoics believed, comes from giving your full energy to one thing at a time, fully immersing yourself in the present moment. Imagine this: you're working on an important project, but your phone buzzes with notifications, emails pile up in your inbox, and your mind keeps drifting to other tasks. Sound familiar? This is where the Stoic practice of focus comes in. It's about deliberately choosing where to direct your attention and guarding it fiercely. Seneca advised, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" What he's saying here is profound. By simplifying your focus, you strip away distractions and create space for what truly matters. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what's essential and doing it well. Let's bring this into the modern world. Think about the last time you tried to multitask. Did you feel productive, or did you end the day feeling scattered and unaccomplished? Research shows that multitasking actually reduces efficiency as our brains struggle to switch between tasks. The Stoic approach to focus flips this on its head. Instead of juggling multiple responsibilities, you zero in on one task, giving it your full attention until it's complete. For example, if you're writing a report, close your email, silence your phone, and dedicate a set period of time to nothing but that report. You might be surprised at how much more you accomplish and how much clearer your mind feels. So here's a question to reflect on. What task deserves your full attention today? Is it a project at work, a conversation with a loved one, or perhaps even a moment of self-care? The Stoic practice of focus invites us to slow down, to prioritize quality over quantity, and to give ourselves fully to the task at hand. When you focus, you're not just getting things done, you're reclaiming your time, your energy, and your peace of mind. And in a world that's constantly pulling us in 100 directions, that's a gift worth giving yourself. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." These words capture the essence of integrity, a virtue that lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. Integrity isn't just about doing the right thing when it's easy, it's about aligning your actions with your values even when it's hard. For the Stoics, integrity was more than a moral ideal. It was a daily practice, a way of living that demanded consistency between what you believe and how you behave. It's about being the same person in private as you are in public, and making choices that reflect your deepest principles, no matter the cost. Let's bring this to life with a practical example. Imagine you're at work and you've made a mistake that could easily go unnoticed. Maybe it's a small error in a report, or perhaps you missed a deadline. The easy thing to do might be to stay quiet, to hope no one notices. But integrity calls you to do the harder thing, to own up to the mistake, to take responsibility, and to make it right. This isn't just about honesty, it's about honoring your values even when it's uncomfortable. By aligning your actions with your principles, you're not just fixing a problem, you're reinforcing the kind of person you want to be. But integrity isn't just about big moments, it's also about the small, everyday choices that define who we are. Think about how you treat people when no one's watching. Do you show kindness to a stranger even if it goes unnoticed? Do you stay true to your word even when it's inconvenient? These seemingly small acts of integrity ripple outward, shaping not just your character but the world around you. The Stoics believed that every choice, no matter how minor, is an opportunity to practice virtue. It's not about being perfect, it's about striving to live in alignment with what you believe. So here's a question to reflect on. Are your actions in line with your principles? It's easy to talk about integrity, but living it requires constant attention and courage. Take a moment to consider where you might need to realign. Is it in your relationships, your work, or perhaps even how you treat yourself? Integrity isn't a one-time achievement. It's a lifelong commitment to doing what's right, even when it's hard. And in that commitment, you'll find not just strength, but a deep sense of peace and purpose. As Epictetus reminds us, the path to becoming who you want to be starts with the choices you make, one honest moment at a time. How do you bounce back from failure? It's a question that can feel heavy, especially when setbacks hit hard. For the Stoics, resilience wasn't just about enduring hardship, it was about transforming it into a source of strength. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "The obstacle is the way." These words are more than a catchy phrase, they're a philosophy. They remind us that the very challenges we face, those moments of failure, loss, or disappointment, are not roadblocks but opportunities to grow. Resilience from a Stoic perspective isn't about avoiding pain, it's about learning to thrive in spite of it. Take a modern example. Imagine you've just lost your job. It's a blow to your confidence, your finances, and your sense of security. In the moment, it might feel like the end of the world. But what if, instead of seeing it as a failure, you chose to see it as a chance to reset? The Stoics would encourage you to focus not on what you've lost, but on what you can gain from the experience. Maybe it's an opportunity to explore a new career path, to develop skills you've been neglecting, or to reconnect with what truly matters to you. By reframing the setback, you transform it into a stepping stone. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." This idea is at the heart of Stoic resilience. It's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. When you face adversity with this mindset, you're not just surviving, you're building the kind of inner strength that can weather any storm. Resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you cultivate, one challenge at a time. So here's a question to reflect on. What challenge has made you stronger? It might be a failure, a loss, or even a moment of self-doubt. The Stoic practice of resilience invites us to look back at those moments and ask, what did I learn? How did I grow? When you see adversity as a teacher, you don't just recover from failure, you emerge stronger, wiser, and more prepared for whatever comes next. And that's the true power of resilience. It doesn't just help you bounce back, it helps you leap forward. Change is the only constant, a truth as old as time, yet one we often resist. For the Stoics, adapting to change wasn't just a skill, it was a way of life. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most insightful voices, wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant." His words remind us that life is always in motion, and our ability to flow with it rather than fight against it determines our peace of mind. Adaptability, in this sense, isn't about passively accepting whatever comes your way. It's about actively meeting change with resilience and resourcefulness. It's about recognizing that while you can't control the winds, you can adjust your sails. Take a practical example. Imagine you've just started a new job and the routines you're used to no longer apply. Maybe your schedule is different, your responsibilities have shifted, or the workplace culture feels unfamiliar. At first, it might feel disorienting, even frustrating. But this is where adaptability comes into play. Instead of clinging to how things used to be, you focus on what you can do to thrive in this new environment. Perhaps you experiment with new ways to organize your time, or you take the initiative to build relationships with your new colleagues. Adaptability isn't about abandoning your values or goals. It's about finding new ways to pursue them, even when the landscape shifts. Seneca also taught that flexibility is a form of strength. He wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." When we learn to adapt, we're not just surviving change, we're growing through it. Think of it like a tree bending in the wind. Rigidity can lead to breaking, but flexibility allows it to endure. The same is true for us. By embracing change, we develop the mental and emotional agility to handle whatever life throws our way. It's not about avoiding discomfort, it's about using it as a catalyst for growth. So here's a question to reflect on. Where in your life could you practice more adaptability? Is it in your career, your relationships, or perhaps even your daily habits? The Stoic practice of adaptability invites us to see change not as a threat but as an opportunity. When you learn to adjust, to pivot, and to find new ways forward, you're not just navigating life's uncertainties, you're thriving because of them. And in that process, you'll discover a deeper sense of resilience, creativity, and freedom. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." These words remind us that we're all interconnected and that true strength lies not in isolation, but in how we treat those around us. For the Stoics, compassion wasn't just a nice idea. It was a practice, a way of living that recognized our shared humanity. They believed that kindness and empathy weren't signs of weakness but expressions of wisdom. After all, if we're all part of the same hive, then helping others is ultimately helping ourselves. This principle isn't just ancient wisdom, it's a call to action, one that feels especially relevant in today's fast-paced, often disconnected world. Let's bring this into the modern day. Imagine a colleague at work is struggling. Maybe they're overwhelmed with deadlines or dealing with a personal crisis. It's easy to stay focused on your own tasks, to tell yourself it's not your problem. But what if instead you chose to extend a hand? It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be as simple as offering to help with a project, or even just taking a moment to listen. These small acts of compassion don't just ease someone else's burden. They strengthen the bonds between us, creating a sense of community and trust. And in the process, you're not just helping them, you're practicing the kind of empathy that enriches your own life. Compassion isn't always easy, especially when we're busy or stressed, but the Stoics would argue that it's precisely in those moments that it matters most. Epictetus taught that our actions should be guided by a sense of duty to others, writing, "What is the first business of one who practices philosophy? To part with self-conceit, for it is impossible for anyone to begin to learn what he thinks he already knows." What he's saying here is profound. Compassion begins with humility, with the recognition that we're all flawed, all struggling, all in need of kindness at times. When we let go of the idea that we're above helping others, we open ourselves to deeper connections and a richer sense of purpose. So here's a question to reflect on. How can you show more compassion to those around you? It might start with something small, like a smile or a kind word, or it could mean going out of your way to support someone in need. The Stoic practice of compassion invites us to see beyond our own concerns, to recognize that we're all part of the same hive. And when we act with kindness, we don't just improve the lives of others, we create a better world for ourselves, one thoughtful gesture at a time. How do you stay committed to your goals when distractions and temptations are everywhere? It's a question we've all wrestled with at some point, and it's at the heart of the Stoic virtue of discipline. For the Stoics, discipline wasn't about punishment or deprivation, it was about self-mastery. It was the key to unlocking true freedom, the kind of freedom that comes from being in control of your own actions, rather than being driven by impulses or external pressures. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most practical teachers, put it this way: "No man is free who is not master of himself." His words remind us that discipline isn't a restriction, it's a liberation. When you master your desires and impulses, you're no longer a slave to them. You become the captain of your own ship, steering your life with intention and purpose. Consider a modern example: sticking to a fitness routine. It's easy to start with enthusiasm, but as time goes on, motivation wanes. Maybe you're tired after a long day, or the couch seems more appealing than the gym. This is where discipline comes in. It's not about relying on fleeting motivation, but about making a commitment to yourself and following through, even when it's hard. The Stoics would argue that every time you choose to honor that commitment, you're not just building physical strength, you're strengthening your character. Each decision to act with discipline reinforces your ability to stay focused, to resist distractions, and to pursue what truly matters. But discipline isn't just about grand goals like fitness or career success. It's also in the small, everyday choices like resisting the urge to check your phone during a conversation, or choosing to tackle a difficult task instead of procrastinating. These moments might seem insignificant, but they add up. They shape your habits, your character, and ultimately your life. Epictetus taught that self-control is the foundation of all virtues, writing, "He who cannot control himself cannot control anything." In other words, discipline isn't just a tool for achieving goals, it's the bedrock of a meaningful, intentional life. So here's a question to reflect on. What area of your life needs more discipline? Is it your health, your work habits, or perhaps how you manage your time? The Stoic practice of discipline invites us to take an honest look at where we're letting distractions or impulses take the wheel, and to reclaim control. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Every small act of discipline is a step toward greater freedom, clarity, and purpose. And in that process, you're not just achieving your goals, you're becoming the kind of person who can achieve anything. Happiness comes from within, a truth so simple, yet so often overlooked in a world that constantly pushes us to want more. For the Stoics, contentment wasn't about accumulating possessions or chasing external achievements. It was about finding satisfaction in what you already have. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." His words remind us that contentment isn't a destination or a reward for reaching some future goal. It's a practice, a way of being that begins with appreciating the here and now. Think about it. How often do we tie our happiness to external conditions? We tell ourselves, "I'll be happy when I get that promotion," or "I'll feel fulfilled once I achieve this goal." But the Stoics would argue that this mindset keeps us trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction. True contentment, they believed, comes from within. It's about recognizing that you already have everything you need to be happy, right here, right now. This doesn't mean you stop striving or growing. It means you stop postponing your happiness until some future moment that may never come. Let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine you're sitting outside on a sunny day, sipping a cup of coffee. The warmth of the sun on your skin, the aroma of the coffee, the quiet moment of peace. These are small, simple pleasures, but they're also profound. The Stoics would encourage you to savor these moments, to let them fill you with gratitude rather than rushing past them in pursuit of the next big thing. Contentment isn't about ignoring life's challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding joy in the ordinary, in the everyday moments that often go unnoticed. Seneca also wrote, "He who is not satisfied with a little will never be satisfied with much." This idea is a powerful antidote to the modern mindset of constant striving. It's a reminder that no matter how much we achieve or acquire, it will never be enough if we don't learn to appreciate what we already have. Contentment is about shifting your focus from what's missing to what's present, from what you lack to what you possess. It's about cultivating a sense of enough, even in a world that constantly tells you you need more. So here's a question to reflect on. What simple pleasures bring you joy? Is it the sound of birds in the morning, the taste of your favorite meal, or the comfort of a good book? The Stoic practice of contentment invites us to pause, to notice, and to appreciate the small joys that are already part of our lives. When you learn to find happiness within, you don't just change how you feel, you change how you live. It's a shift that transforms not just your perspective, but your entire experience of life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive." These words aren't just a poetic reminder to appreciate life, they're a call to action, an invitation to structure your days in a way that reflects what truly matters to you. For the Stoics, routine wasn't about mindlessly going through the motions. It was about creating intentional habits that align with your values and help you live with purpose. A well-designed routine isn't just a schedule, it's a tool for cultivating focus, discipline, and inner peace. Let's break this down with a practical example. Imagine starting your day with a simple morning meditation. You wake up, find a quiet space, and spend 10 minutes focusing on your breath, setting intentions for the day ahead. This isn't just about relaxation, it's about grounding yourself before the chaos of the day begins. The Stoics believed that how you start your day sets the tone for everything that follows. By carving out time for reflection and mindfulness, you're not just preparing for the day, you're reminding yourself of what's important. It's a small act, but over time it becomes a powerful anchor, helping you stay centered even when life gets hectic. But routines aren't just about mornings, they're about how you structure your entire day. Think about your current schedule. Are your habits supporting your goals, or are they pulling you away from them? The Stoic practice of routine encourages us to be deliberate with our time, to prioritize activities that align with our values and let go of those that don't. For instance, if meaningful connection is important to you, how can you build habits that foster it? Maybe it's setting aside an hour each evening to spend quality time with loved ones, or committing to a weekly phone call with a friend. These intentional choices add up, creating a life that feels purposeful and aligned. So here's a question to reflect on. How can you design a daily routine that reflects your values? It doesn't have to be elaborate or time-consuming, it just needs to be meaningful. Start small. Maybe it's 5 minutes of journaling before bed, or a short walk during lunch to clear your mind. The key is consistency and intention. A well-crafted routine isn't about rigidly controlling every moment. It's about creating a framework that supports your growth, your well-being, and your ability to live in alignment with what matters most. When you structure your days with purpose, you don't just manage your time, you shape your life. How often do you allow yourself to be still, in a world that never stops moving, where notifications buzz, deadlines loom, and the pace of life feels relentless? Stillness can feel like a luxury or even a forgotten skill. Yet for the Stoics, stillness wasn't just a break from the chaos, it was a cornerstone of wisdom. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most profound teachers, taught that inner calm is not something we find in the external world, it's something we cultivate within. He wrote, "Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems." His words remind us that much of our stress comes from the noise in our minds, and stillness is the antidote. It's about creating space to quiet the mental chatter, to reconnect with what truly matters. Consider this modern example, a digital detox. Imagine turning off your phone, stepping away from social media, and spending an hour, or even just 10 minutes in silence. No emails, no scrolling, no distractions. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, even unnatural. But what if, in that stillness, you found clarity? What if, by disconnecting from the noise, you reconnected with yourself? The Stoics would argue that these moments of quiet aren't just nice to have, they're essential. Stillness is where we process, reflect, and recharge. It's where we remember who we are and what we value, apart from the demands of the world. Stillness doesn't have to mean sitting in a dark room with no distractions. It can be as simple as taking a walk without headphones, or sitting by a window and watching the world go by. The key is to create moments where the mind can rest, where the constant pull of external stimuli is paused. Think about it. When was the last time you truly disconnected? When was the last time you gave yourself permission to just be, without an agenda or a to-do list? The practice of stillness invites us to reclaim those moments, to prioritize them not as indulgences but as necessities. Epictetus also taught that stillness is not just about physical quiet but mental quiet. He said, "It's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters." In moments of stillness, we train ourselves to respond rather than react, to approach life's challenges with clarity rather than chaos. It's in these quiet moments that we build resilience, that we remind ourselves of what we can control and let go of what we can't. So here's an invitation. Carve out a moment of stillness today. It doesn't have to be long, just enough to breathe, to reflect, to reconnect. Whether it's through meditation, a walk in nature, or simply sitting quietly with a cup of tea, stillness is a gift you give yourself. In a world that never stops moving, it's a practice that can ground you, center you, and remind you of what truly matters. And in that stillness, you might just find the peace you've been searching for all along. Truth is the foundation of trust. Without it, relationships crumble, integrity falters, and the very fabric of who we are begins to unravel. For the Stoics, honesty wasn't just a moral guideline, it was a way of life, a commitment to living authentically in a world that often rewards pretense. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most compelling voices, wrote, "A good character is the only guarantee of everlasting, carefree happiness." At the heart of that good character, honesty, to the Stoics, living truthfully meant aligning your words, actions, and intentions with your deepest values. It wasn't just about telling the truth to others, it was about being honest with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. Let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine you're at work and you've made a mistake. Maybe you missed a deadline or overlooked an important detail. It's tempting to downplay the error, to shift blame, or even to hope no one notices. But the Stoic virtue of honesty calls you to do the harder thing, to own up to it. Admitting a mistake isn't just about taking responsibility, it's about building trust. When you're honest about your shortcomings, you show others that you value integrity over ego. And in doing so, you create a culture of openness and accountability, where mistakes are seen not as failures, but as opportunities to learn and grow. But honesty isn't just about admitting mistakes, it's also about living authentically. It's about being true to who you are, even when it's easier to conform. Think about the times you've stayed silent to avoid conflict or nodded along to something you didn't agree with. These small compromises might seem harmless, but over time they erode your sense of self. The Stoics believed that living authentically isn't just a personal choice, it's a moral obligation. When you're honest with yourself and others, you're not just building trust, you're building a life that aligns with your values. So here's a question to reflect on. Where in your life can you be more truthful? Is it in your relationships, your work, or perhaps even the way you talk to yourself? The Stoic practice of honesty invites us to examine where we might be hiding, where we might be compromising our integrity, and to take steps toward greater authenticity. When you choose honesty, you're not just living truthfully, you're living freely. And in that freedom, you'll find a deeper sense of trust, both in yourself and in the world around you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What we do for ourselves dies with us. What we do for others lives on." These words capture the essence of the Stoic practice of generosity, a virtue that goes far beyond mere charity. For the Stoics, generosity wasn't about grand gestures or public recognition. It was about cultivating a spirit of giving that flows naturally from a place of empathy and connection. It's about recognizing that we're all part of the same human family, and that our actions, no matter how small, can ripple outward, creating a lasting impact. At its core, Stoic generosity is rooted in the idea of giving without expectation. It's not about keeping score or waiting for something in return. It's about giving freely because the act itself is its own reward. Think about it. When you help someone without expecting praise or repayment, you're not just helping them, you're strengthening your own character. You're practicing humility, kindness, and a deep sense of interconnectedness. The Stoics believed that true generosity enriches the giver as much as the receiver, creating a cycle of goodwill that uplifts everyone involved. Let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine you're volunteering at a local food bank, packing boxes for families in need. It's not glamorous work, and no one is going to give you a medal for it. But in that moment, you're not thinking about recognition, you're thinking about the people who will receive those boxes. You're giving your time, your energy, and your care, knowing that it will make a difference even if you never see the results firsthand. This is the essence of Stoic generosity. It's not about what you get in return, it's about the intrinsic value of giving itself. Consider another example. A co-worker is struggling with a heavy workload and you offer to help them finish a project. You're not doing it because you expect them to owe you a favor. You're doing it because you genuinely want to ease their burden. This kind of generosity builds trust, strengthens relationships, and creates a culture of support. It's a reminder that we're all in this together and that even small acts of kindness can have a profound impact. So here's a question to reflect on. How can you give more to those around you? It doesn't have to be a monumental effort. It could be as simple as lending an ear to a friend in need or offering a word of encouragement to someone who's struggling. The Stoic practice of generosity invites us to look beyond ourselves, to see the needs of others, and to respond with an open heart. When we give freely without expectation, we don't just enrich the lives of others, we enrich our own. In the end, generosity isn't just an act, it's a way of being, a way of living that leaves a lasting legacy long after we're gone. How do you learn from your experiences? It's a question that might seem simple, but the answer holds the key to growth and self-improvement. For the Stoics, reflection wasn't just a casual look back at the day. It was a deliberate practice, a way to extract wisdom from what's already happened so you can move forward with greater clarity. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, believed that self-improvement begins with self-awareness. He wrote, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." His words remind us that reflection isn't just about looking back. It's about using the past to shape the future. Let's break this down with a practical example. Imagine you've just completed a major project at work. The deadline was tight, the team was under pressure, and the outcome wasn't perfect. Instead of simply moving on to the next task, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself, what went well? What could I have done differently? What lessons can I carry forward? This isn't about dwelling on mistakes or patting yourself on the back. It's about extracting actionable insights. Maybe you realize that clearer communication earlier in the process could have avoided misunderstandings, or that delegating certain tasks would have lightened the load. These reflections aren't just observations, they're tools for growth. Epictetus also taught that reflection is most powerful when it's honest and unflinching. He said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. What he's getting at here is that true growth requires humility. It's about being willing to confront your shortcomings, to acknowledge where you fell short, and to commit to doing better next time. This kind of reflection isn't always comfortable, but it's where the most profound growth happens. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about seeing yourself clearly and using that clarity to become the person you want to be. Now, think about a recent experience in your own life. What lesson can you take from it? It doesn't have to be a monumental event. It could be as simple as a conversation that didn't go as planned or a decision that left you second-guessing. The Stoic practice of reflection invites us to pause, to examine, and to learn. By turning our experiences into lessons, we're not just living, we're growing. And in that growth, we find the power to shape our future with intention and purpose. Difficult conversations are opportunities for growth, a truth that might feel counterintuitive when you're staring down the barrel of a tough discussion. For the Stoics, these moments weren't something to dread or avoid. They were chances to practice courage, honesty, and respect. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most insightful voices, wrote, "Speech is the index of the mind." His words remind us that how we communicate reflects not just our thoughts but our character. When we approach difficult conversations with integrity and clarity, we're not just resolving conflicts, we're building trust and deepening our understanding of others. Let's break this down with a practical example. Imagine you've been feeling overlooked at work. Maybe your ideas aren't being heard, or your contributions aren't being recognized. It's easy to let frustration simmer, to tell yourself it's not worth bringing up. But what if instead you chose to have that difficult conversation with your manager? The Stoic approach wouldn't involve blame or anger. It would focus on honesty and respect. You might start by acknowledging your appreciation for the team's work, then calmly express how you're feeling and why it matters to you. This isn't about demanding recognition, it's about creating understanding. By addressing the issue directly and respectfully, you're not just advocating for yourself, you're fostering a culture of open communication. Seneca also emphasized the importance of listening in these moments. He taught that true communication is a two-way street, where speaking honestly is just as important as hearing openly. Think about a time when you've been on the receiving end of a difficult conversation. Did the other person truly listen to you, or were they just waiting for their turn to speak? The Stoics believed that active listening is a form of respect, a way to honor the humanity of the person you're speaking with. It's not about agreeing with everything they say, but about understanding their perspective and finding common ground. So here's a question to reflect on. What conversation have you been avoiding that you need to have? Is it a disagreement with a loved one, a misunderstanding at work, or perhaps even a self-reflection you've been putting off? The Stoic practice of courageous conversations invites us to face these moments head-on, not with fear but with clarity and compassion. When we approach difficult conversations as opportunities for growth, we don't just resolve conflicts, we transform them into stepping stones for deeper connection and understanding. Persist and resist. These two words from Epictetus capture the essence of perseverance, a virtue that lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. For the Stoics, perseverance wasn't just about enduring hardship, it was about embracing it as an opportunity to strengthen your character and deepen your resolve. They believed that life's challenges weren't obstacles to avoid, but tests to overcome, each one offering a chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Perseverance, in this sense, isn't just a trait, it's a practice, a way of turning struggle into strength. Consider a practical example. Imagine you've set a long-term goal like writing a book, running a marathon, or building a business. At first, the excitement carries you forward, but as time goes on, progress slows, obstacles arise, and motivation wanes. This is where perseverance comes in. It's not about relying on fleeting bursts of enthusiasm. It's about showing up day after day, even when the path feels steep and the finish line seems far away. The Stoics would argue that every small step you take, every effort you make is a victory in itself. It's not about how fast you reach your goal, it's about staying committed no matter how long it takes. One of the most powerful aspects of perseverance is its ability to transform how we see challenges. Instead of viewing setbacks as failures, we can see them as opportunities to practice resilience. Think about a time when you faced a difficult situation. Maybe it was a project that didn't go as planned, or a personal goal that felt out of reach. What kept you going? Often, it's not the promise of success, but the belief that the struggle itself has value. The Stoics called this Amor Fati, the love of fate. It's about embracing every part of the journey, even the hard parts, because they're shaping you into the person you're meant to become. So here's a question to reflect on. What challenge are you facing right now that requires more perseverance? It might be a long-term project, a personal goal, or even a relationship that's going through a rough patch. Whatever it is, remember that perseverance isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. It's about showing up even when it's hard and trusting that every step forward, no matter how small, is bringing you closer to where you want to be. As Epictetus reminds us, the path to greatness is paved not by ease but by endurance. And in that endurance, you'll find not just success, but a deeper sense of purpose and strength. After exploring these 42 Stoic techniques, one thing becomes abundantly clear. They are more than just tools, they are a way of life. Each practice, from the dichotomy of control to the art of negative visualization, from the discipline of desire to the power of gratitude, is a thread in a larger tapestry. Together, they form a framework for navigating life's obstacles with resilience, presence, and virtue. The Stoics didn't just teach us how to survive adversity, they showed us how to thrive because of it. They reminded us that every challenge, every setback, is an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more aligned with our deepest values. At the heart of this philosophy is a simple yet profound truth. Life is not about what happens to us, but how we respond. The Stoic techniques we've explored are not about controlling the uncontrollable, they're about mastering ourselves. They're about cultivating the kind of inner strength that allows us to face uncertainty with calm, to meet hardship with courage, and to find joy in the ordinary. Whether it's through journaling to deepen self-awareness, practicing gratitude to shift our perspective, or embracing challenges as opportunities, these techniques are a roadmap for living with intention and purpose. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest voices, once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." These words capture the essence of Stoic wisdom, that obstacles are not barriers but stepping stones. They are invitations to rise, to adapt, and to become the best versions of ourselves. As we close this journey through the 42 techniques, I invite you to reflect on how you can apply these principles in your own life. What challenges are you facing right now? How can you reframe them as opportunities for growth? And how can these Stoic practices help you build a life of resilience, presence, and virtue? Before we end, I want to leave you with one final thought. Stoicism is not just a philosophy to study, it's a practice to live. It's about showing up day after day and choosing to live with intention even when it's hard. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. How has Stoicism impacted your life? What techniques have you found most powerful? And if you're new to this journey, welcome. There's so much more to explore, and I'd be honored to guide you further. Don't forget to subscribe for more Stoic wisdom, and let's continue this journey together. Remember, the path to a fulfilling life isn't about avoiding challenges, it's about embracing them as opportunities to grow. Until next time, take care and